Today I'm going to show you what the difference is between sized and unsized paper and how I swatch my watercolors. So I'm quickly going to make a very tiny batch of YInTiCo Red here. It is a wonderful granulating color. It's a unique pink, and to be honest, I really love showing off that I have this color in my collection. So YInTiCo Red is the latest red pigment PR298, and it's a it's family from Yin Blue. It's a granulating pink pigment, and I actually love the color. In watercolors, it's quite unique, but in mediums like oil or acrylics, it's very easy to mix something very similar. So I'm going to make a batch of paint that I can swatch. I'm going to dilute it with water so I have the same paint, same consistency for every swatch. Is it a waste of paint? Not in my opinion. I have enough of the pigment, and it is an interesting experiment what I'm doing, so let's check it out. Here is the first piece of paper. This is unsized paper. So what is sizing? It has nothing to do with the size of the paper. So the measurements, nothing to do with that. Sizing is a layer internally or externally applied while paper is being made. So sizing could, for instance, be gelatin. It is mixed within the pulp of the paint before the paper sheets are actually made, but sizing can also be done afterwards. So that is external sizing, and it is a layer on top of the paper. So what does sizing actually do? As you can see here, this is sized paper. The very first one, so let's quickly go back now. So this is unsized paper. And as you can see, the paint is just directly absorbed into the paper. Here, sized paper, and the last one, hot pressed paper. So what sizing does, it stops the pigment particles from being absorbed into the paper. They actually lay on top of the paper. You see unsized paper, rough paper, cold pressed and hot pressed. So the difference is when paper is made, it has a texture, and it really depends on the finish. Rough and cold pressed paper are both very texture rich. Rough more so than cold pressed. Hot pressed, well, it is made with a lot of pressure, so it doesn't really have any texture left in the paper. So there's lots of different kinds of paper, but rough, cold pressed and hot pressed are the ones you can choose from within those kinds. So what kind of kinds am I talking about? Well, I use 300 gram 100% cotton paper. It is vegan paper, which means the sizing, it is actually vegetable-based sizing that was used internally, and externally another vegan sizing in this paper. This is Hannah Muller, the collection watercolor paper, 300 grams, and I actually love this paper. You have a wider range of different papers. You have synthetic fibers, you have natural fibers, you have recycled fibers, you name it. This is my choice of paper. These are all sized, obviously. So when would you use unsized paper? Well, in different printing techniques where you don't want the ink to be on top of the paper but absorbed into the paper, to have very crisp edges with ink, differently than pigments. You want to have unsized paper. But for watercolors, you want those pigment particles to shine, to show their properties. Talking about properties, you see a difference between rough, cold press and hot press when it comes to texture. So the granulation of this pigment, that granulating effect, shows a lot more in rough paper and cold pressed paper than it does in hot pressed paper. When we are looking all the way on the left to the unsized paper, it is fully absorbed into the paper, wet on wet, wet on dry, you name it. Doesn't matter, it is absorbed directly into the paper. It's just like a paper towel. It just sucks up the paint, meaning water, the binder, the pigment, you name it, it is just directly absorbed into the paper. It leaves color, it shows color, but a lot less chromatic, and there's no texture, there's no control over what you do with the paint. It is just directly absorbed at that point where you apply it on the paper, so where your brush touches the paper. So here you can see it more clearly when we look close up. Flat, no texture at all, beautiful granulating paint, again granulating paint, and even with this hot press paper, granulating paint, but a lot less texture. So wet on wet, same thing, it flows with the sized paper, but it is directly absorbed by the unsized paper. Now, this is enough of me. Let's have a look how I properly swatch YInTiCo Red using my swatching templates. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, make sure to follow my channel, and hopefully see you next time.